gonna be easy. It's a necessity. You don't see what we see. You're your own enemy. So you gotta wake up now. You've been sleeping for too long. You gotta wake up. Yeah, 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 yeah. For the man with the gun, you gotta know what goes around.
Welcome to Meaningful Conversations with Dr. L. This is a Savage Bull Entertainment production.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another segment of Meaningful Conversations. And hello, this is our first live Instagram, so this is another platform. But those of you who are listening to us via the radio 93.5 FM in the Raleigh, Wake County area, welcome, welcome, welcome. And those of you who are watching us via Facebook or whatever methods that you are listening to our show tonight, thank you. I'm Dr. L, and just really excited to be back. We were off last Thursday. I had to take a little vacation, a little break. But we are back. I am back, and I am back in the studio. So let me tell you what happened. What happened was we had a guest set up that we were going to pre-record on Tuesday and then actually air it again tonight. And this guest I have been trying to get for months, and working with his assistant, we finally nailed down some times and things have happened and we've had to reschedule. But I promise you, we are going to have this special guest on because I want to have a meaningful conversation about the vaccine, wearing face masks, the politics behind the vaccines, and particularly the messages that are coming out of the evangelical church. And so I don't want to spoil it. I want you to tune in a week from next Thursday, because we're going to pre-record him on the 19th. And actually, you can tune in here at 5 o'clock on Tuesday the 19th and hear our special guest, who we will then re-air on Thursday. Let me just say, he went viral preaching from the pulpit against the vaccine. And so I want to hear him. We listen to people who seem to have something to say and who are sending messages out, whether we agree with them or not. And as you all know, all the points of view that I say that come out of my mouth are mine and mine alone. So I want to do that alone. I want to give that little disclaimer and do not reflect my employer, my 9-to-5er, right? So, this is my little side hustle, and actually something that I really love doing is coming here every Thursday night at 9 o'clock and having a meaningful conversation with our guests and with you. So thanks for tuning in, and go ahead and ask me, why did we start tonight's segment with the Fugees, y'all? Yes! What? They are back together. The band is back. The Fugees are back together, and they are going on tour. And the soundtrack or the songs that they will be singing will be from their Score album. So, Killing Me Softly, Ready or Not, Fuji La, the whole Score album is what they will be out on tour doing. And I'm sure they'll throw in some other things, but I am just so geeked out and so excited. Lauryn Hill's voice was so powerful, and it's still powerful. If you all listen to her recent interviews that she has done over the last several years, and even more recently, this sister is deep, and she didn't lose that ability to think critically about social and political issues. And so I am really excited that she went through whatever she went through. And I'm actually, she took a break, right? So she took a break. Some of us, I need a break. If I could afford to take off as much time as she took off and just, I'm not going to say she chilled. I don't know what she did. But I do know that I am glad she's back. I'm glad she went through whatever she went through. and made it through to the other side and is getting ready to bless us, her fans, with some more music in partnership with the Fugees. Now, I was feeling some kind of way about Wyclef Jean when all that came out about his nonprofit, when he was raising money, right, to help his people in Haiti, because he's Haitian, and so there was all this negative press about him collecting all of these donations and contributions and not really sending it to Haiti or using it as he said. And so his nonprofit shut down, and and then he went on about his business doing whatever Wyclef Jean was doing. I would love to have him on the show, by the way. So if anybody got that hookup, let me know. But the fact that the Fugees are back together again, Lauryn Hill with Wyclef Jean, they just made good music together, y'all. Good music. So I for one, as soon as tickets go on sale, I checked, and I think they are in some places, but I'm hoping that they come to North Carolina. In fact, I might need to just pull up the Fugees tour and see, are they tour dates, and see when and if they are coming to North Carolina. So, Ticketmaster, there's still a Ticketmaster. This might not be real, but anyway, Ticketmaster I thought it was Live Nation or whatever, but Ticketmaster has tickets. Oh shoot. And there's this thing that popped up, no concerts near Raleigh, Durham. Let's see where the closest ones. So they're going to be in Oakland, California, November 7th, Inglewood, November 12th, Atlanta, Georgia, November 18th. And my husband's birthday is the 17th. What? And they're going to be in Miami, Florida on the 21st. No, I don't think I want to go to Miami. But Newark, used to live in Newark, so I might hit Newark. And then the 28th, can't do the 28th because that's my high school reunion in Chapel Hill. And I'm on the reunion committee, so it's the last day. Well, it's the last day, though, so I might could drive up. But anyway, the point is, check out their tour dates. They are on tour. The Fugees are back together. What? Yes, yes, yes. All right. So here we go. I tonight am going to be sounding off about a few things. And these are topics that just, some of it's really recent news, some of it is slightly old news. So where do I want to start? I first want to start with asking, what in the world is going on in our public schools and in these charter schools? So there was a case in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and this just hit the media yesterday, and I just found out about it today. So let me just read one article that reported on what happened at this charter school, Winterville Charter Academy, out of Winston-Salem, or in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So, according to AP News, a teacher resigned from a North Carolina charter school after telling black students in her class that if not for the Constitution, they would be her, hold on to your hats, they would be her field slaves. A comment that one parent said brought attention to other racist incidents at the school. Winterville Academy sent a memo, yada, 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 and referred to racially insensitive words being used by children in the class without any action from the teacher. That teacher, according to the principal, Anastasia Ryan, was supported in turning in her resignation and will not be returning to the Winterville campus. The school leadership team acted immediately and, But according to an 8th grader at the school and a parent, this isn't the first incident, racially motivated, racially charged, racist incident that happened by not only teachers at the school that went unchecked for a while, apparently, according to the parents in this article, but also went unchecked by, leadership. And so it was not only teachers, but also students. So, for example, a white student called a black student a monkey. And when the black student educated him on that being racist, and him not liking it and not to call him that, and asked the teacher for support, the teacher turned around and said to him, "Oh, it's okay. We are all a little bit racist." For real? For real though? And then another student said, that they were called by a white student, then a black student then called the white student who had called them a monkey a cracker, to which the teacher responded then with a threat to write the black student up for disciplinary action. The incident went on, and then there's other incidents where the children had complained about racist references, but no action was taken. So that's all. I'm going to just go into that. I encourage you to Google it. Winterville Charter School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This just happened, hot off the press. It happened. The resignation happened yesterday. So first of all, I want to just really say to the kids who spoke up, and the kids who told their parents, and the parents who got involved, kudos to you. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take confronting racists, no matter where they are, whatever institution they are in, up front and directly. It's going to take, having the courage to call it out, having the courage to even call media attention to it. Calling media attention to it is like turning the lights on in a roach infested kitchen. And so I just want to say, I know it's a lot that people put on the line, those who end up calling it out. Right? Like the student who in this case was threatened by the teacher to have a disciplinary action when they responded after the teacher didn't take care of the student that called him a monkey. After she dismissed that, this student, then the black student, then calls the student that called him monkey a cracker, and then all of a sudden now it's a problem. And so I applaud the parent who didn't settle for that, and it needs to be equitable and fair treatment across the board, and not endorsing or saying that it should be tit for tat, but it definitely needs to be an equitable response. People should not just dismiss racist behavior by some children and then other children penalize and take disciplinary actions against, right? So come on, and I am really concerned about the traction. On another note, similar to this, the traction that the whole pushback against teaching forms of critical race theory, or let me just say this, teaching accurate American history, teaching factual American history, like the 1619 Project, teaching what really happened without leaving out chunks of American history. The pushback against that is remarkable. I mean, it's amazing, right? That people don't want our children to be educated about the full history of this great country of ours, and it's good, bad, and ugly, right? And so this, I think, is part of what happens when someone sets a fire and they don't allow anyone to come in and extinguish it, which happened under the previous president, stirring up this racial tension and this hostility and racism. It has seeped over into what I think it should be a sacred place, and that's our K through 12 schools. So, hey, let's continue to watch what's going on with this charter school. Let me just say something else too about charter schools. So, we have a charter school in the Chapel Hill area, Woods Academy. And, I get pushed back on this all the time. I don't mind people putting their children in private schools and paying for it out of their pocket. What I do mind are charter schools that get public dollars and then turn around and implement policies and practices like they are a private school. Because then you're using my tax dollars to create a private school that in many instances excludes or doesn't serve kids that look like me, or my nieces and nephews and godchildren and their children and so forth, right? And so I really do think we need to take a look at these charter schools. Now, there are some charter schools that are great and that are doing great work. But we really need to take a look at the charter schools that are not fully integrated, but that are segregated and that look so much like and act so much like and have policies just like they are a private school. Those schools need to be monitored and in my opinion, some of them need to lose their license or whatever you get to be able to call yourself a charter school. So, and remember, I want you to join in the conversation with me. So, if you have anything that you'd like to add to this, please make sure that you give us a call tonight on Meaningful Conversations, and we'd like to hear it. Yeah. So the number is, I always forget this, y'all. 919 919-899-93. 919-899-93. That is such an easy number. 930. Y'all, I know I'm terrible. I am terrible. I usually have it up somewhere, but I don't have it up anywhere. Okay, so let's see here. The other North Carolina related news that I want to talk about, and remember, join in the conversation, call me here, Meaningful Conversations with Dr. L at 1-919-899-30. 919-899-9305. 919-899-9305. 919-899-9305. All right. So the other topic that I want to talk about today is, oh my goodness, when will these stories ever stop? So we know about the Gymnastics Association and the gymnasts that went to Capitol Hill. We know about all the different church scandals and Catholic scandals, priests and all of that, and then the new ones that have emerged. And in North Carolina, one of my favorite sports teams, the North Carolina Courage girls or female women's soccer team, has also now been added to that list of women who have filed allegations and charges against the former, now we can say former because he resigned last week, I believe it was, former coach of the North Carolina Courage. So we know that on Tuesday, two soccer players who had publicly accused the former coach, Riley, of sexual coercion were interviewed by the Today Show, and WRAL Sports Fan covered the story and has an article up that's really good. You can read that. But Mana Shim and Saneed Farley were both coached by Riley when they played with the Portland Thorns during the 2014 and 2015 season. When asked about Riley, and again, this is the former coach, Paul Riley, of our beloved North Carolina Courage soccer team. So, and you remember they won a championship and all that. But when asked about Riley, Shim said he's a predator, and I quote, "He's a predator. He sexually harassed me. He sexually coerced Sanid, and he took away our careers," end quote. They went on. In the article, it states that Riley, who has denied any physical or sexual contact with any player, was fired Thursday after the National Women's Soccer League Players Association called for an investigation when players said that Riley made inappropriate comments towards players spanning over a decade. U.S. Soccer suspended his coaching license in all National Women's Soccer League matches scheduled for last weekend, including last Friday night's NC Courage game. Were canceled. So the point I want to make here is that one, everybody deserves their day in court, and hopefully he will get his day in court, or unless he confesses and moves on or what have you. But this day and time is a time when there's an awakening in I think the conscience and the soul of America. And that happens in so many different ways, right? There are multiple awakenings that are happening, but I think this is one where it's happening among females who understand that they no longer have to be silent or ashamed about being victims of sexual predators. And that is so important for us the message for us to send out, especially to young girls and boys who are in situations now where they are being victimized by sexual predators, whether it's molestation that's happening in the homes by trusted members of the family. And I always tell people, molesters rarely are the boogeymen or women outside of the house. Oftentimes, data show that it's the people that are closest to the family or that the family trusts. And so it's the fathers, it's the uncles, it's the cousins, the brothers, the, sisters and da-da-da-da, right? It goes on and on because we know that the predator can be both male and female, although the majority of the cases, the sexual predator is a male. Although there are some women, a percentage of those cases are done or perpetrated by women. And so I applaud what the women who play on our beloved Courage team are doing, because NC Courage team are doing, because it's sending a message to girls across this state, a state, by the way, that has a problem with human trafficking. And that's a whole nother issue and topic that we will address at some point. I'll have somebody come on, and I think I said that before, but I applaud them because they're sending a message loud and clearly to young girls and boys, hopefully, but especially young girls, that they do not have to be silent, that they do not have to be afraid, and that they can speak up. And we're also getting a glimpse into what goes on in locker rooms in a figurative sense, what goes on in these sports some of these sports teams. And so, watch your girls, watch their behavior, see if their behavior changes, and create safe spaces for them to come to you and share if this is happening to them, and also make sure that you are informed and aware about where and how you can send them to help or lead them to help or get them help, walking hand in hand. Okay, now, y'all, has anybody seen that story about the recent killing in Austin, Texas? Before I go into that, I want to sort of set the context of it. So do you remember several years ago, there was that case called the Affluenza case, where this really rich and affluent white kid got off from homicide, where he was driving drunk and killed, I think it was 4 people. Do you remember that? You don't remember? Okay, listen to this, and then I'm going to pick this up and tell you how it links to this more current story.
Wearing a red hoodie and ball cap with a deputy but no handcuffs, Ethan Couch walks into the Tarrant County Jail. On the second day of a new year, an old face was back.
It's just more of the same.
Former Tarrant County Assistant District Attorney Richard Alpert prosecuted Couch's case.
But I think this may be it for Ethan.
Ethan, is there anything you would say to those families?
The last time we saw Couch was April 2018, leaving 720 days in jail. Our first glimpse was 2013. This baby-faced 16-year-old, whose blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit, killed 4 innocent people in a drunk driving crash. He got 10 years probation, angering victims' families.
I pray the world never takes their eyes off this family.
The world hasn't.
2, 1,
In 2015, when someone saw Couch violating probation at a party and posted the video on Twitter, Couch and his mom took off for Mexico. Fleeing the country was another probation violation, and that's when he served those 720 days.
Ethan, what would you say to your victims?
When he got out 20 months ago, he had 6 years of probation to go. According to an arrest warrant filed Thursday, a patch that monitors his drug use detected THC in his system. That's the chemical in marijuana that causes a high. It means he allegedly violated probation again.
I'm hoping that this is going to be the end of his breaks, and that, people will see that the justice system works, especially the families of the victims.
Ethan Couch is no longer the Affluenza teen. He's a 22-year-old man accused of wasting every chance he's had. In Fort Worth, I'm Teresa Woodard.
Okay, so interestingly, all right, so that case was in Fort Worth, right? Texas. And I remember that story so well because I was one of those that was criticizing and critiquing this whole theory, this whole affluenza theory, right? That this kid could not serve real jail time for being reckless, for his reckless behavior, because he was wealthy and he had so much to contribute to society. But we've heard that story plenty of times, right? The college students that raped girls and got off because they were from wealthy families. We know, right? And I know this is controversial, but even with the Duke rape case, right? Even though there was a lot wrong with that story and that case, something happened in that house, right? And so, but I do know that we have 2 different legal systems. We have the systems that work very well for the very affluent and doesn't work at all for the poor. You have to prove yourself innocent if you're poor, and you have to, somebody has to prove that you're guilty if you're wealthy. So the system is set up really to work for the affluent. And we've seen it time and time again. Challenge me. Give me an example of when you've seen it in the collective, right? Not one case, but the patterns. Show me how in our judicial system across this country where there has been a pattern of equal justice under the law administered. I'll wait on it. But in this case, so I remember this case very well. But there's a flip side to this story, not this particular story, but to this analogy, to this critique. So listen to this.
I am with Community Step Up. I'm also a licensed specialist, and we are designed to help those who go for trauma, okay? When you're being bullied, and this is a situation where Timothy was being bullied, and it had been reported to the principals right along with the teachers. I'm not trying to justify the gun that was brought, but when you're being bullied, when there's bullies, Throughout this nation, you hear of young people killing themselves, committing suicide. It takes us all. On every campus throughout this nation, you have school resource officers, counselors, some have social workers. It takes us all, you all, to listen to these students. And so the way the news media report things is very important. And that's why I'm standing right here in the gap of my family. And I'm standing here today because we never thought what we saw at Timberview High School would happen here in Arlington, Texas, but it did happen. The family will not be speaking anymore. We want Arlington Police School District to look in the fact of being bullied. He was fought. It was an attack within a fight. He was robbed. It was reported. It happened not just once, it happened twice. He was scared, he was afraid. There's a video that's all out on social media, and it shows that he was being attacked. It wasn't just one person that would attack him and bully him, taking his money, harassing him due to the fact because he had more things than maybe others. It takes us all. It takes us all to stand together about this bullying. It could have been a situation where he took the other turn and decided to commit suicide. What the decision that he made, taking the gun, we're not justifying that. That was not right. But he was trying to protect himself. And so we hope that the police department does the investigation properly. There are going to be independent investigations that's going to be done as well, so that we can get to the bottom of really what happened.
Well, and you say that he was bullied exactly
Okay.
because he had, clearly y'all have a little bit of money, you know what I mean? Like, because of money situation.
All right, so there's more to this story. I encourage you to research it, go online and find out a little bit more about it. But let me give you some background. So at this high school in Arlington, Texas, Timberview High School, on Wednesday, October the 6th, so yesterday, this teenager, this young man, went into the school and began to shoot. 4 people were injured. No one was killed, thank God. No one was killed in this case. So this young man was arrested and then later bonded out. So he's 18 and he's, so the argument presented, or the rationale that is given by this young man, who is an African-American male, so he's the opposite of the one we just talked about, the Affluenza white kid, right? Or now he's an adult. But so this is an African-American male from apparently an affluent family. And we know, so that's all relative, right? So apparently an affluent family that is saying the reason why their son went in and did this horrible act, shooting in the school, nobody is dead yet, harming 4 people, is because he was fed up from being bullied, and he was being bullied, according to some accounts that I've read, and most of them are saying the same thing, because he came from a wealthy family. Now look. Okay, so help me unpack this. Somebody please help me. So please call in if you'd like to share in this meaningful conversation. 1-919-899-9305. 919-899-9305. I want to hear from you about this case, what your thoughts are. Is there something called Affluenza 1 that causes you to not have to, that's justification for you not serving any time for your actions because you're so wealthy that your behaviors are excusable due to other extenuating or mitigating circumstances, and your value to society is somehow much greater, and you would be damaged going into our prison system in the United States, which you would be. But think about all the black and brown folk and poor white folk that are in our prison systems across the country and whose lives are also traumatized in these systems. So, you did they say you did the crime, pay the time. This other side of this argument that's being used by this black family is he was driven to it because he was being bullied, because he was wealthy. And so therefore he broke. And we need to understand how bullying can drive people to killing. And I believe that in some of the other like mass school shootings and so forth, I think there was one case I remember vaguely where bullying was, where they said that the perpetrator had been bullied. So I do believe that bullying can cause, and there's evidence to show, research findings to show it can cause extremely extraordinary psychological damage. And so I do believe that. But to bring out that he was being bullied because he was wealthy, or affluent, because they kept asking for his stuff. Bullies ask for people's stuff all the time, whether they are wealthy or not. So to make that assumption that because he was being bullied because he was affluent, I don't know. I gotta hear some more, I gotta hear some more evidence beyond the fact that they were asking for his stuff and he wore nice things. I think one article said, oh my gosh, give me a break. 'Cause that's almost stereotypical, right? That people are jealous of the affluent kids. Now, I mean, if you're teaching in school, particularly if you're listening and you're a teacher and you've seen this play out, by all means, please let's have a meaningful conversation about it. Give me a call at 199-899-9305. But I just think, to throw that in, maybe so, I don't know. But for me, when I first heard it, I was like, well, these were probably bullies that were going to bully him anyway. And I'm sure there are other kids that were bullied by these same people that were not affluent in that school, right? Because bullies, almost everybody that they think are weak and won't fight back are, they're equal opportunists, right? They will bully you whether you're affluent or not, I believe. I think bullies just simply prey on people that they think are afraid of them and that they think are weak. Children bullies as well as adult bullies. Okay. And so I just had a problem kind of accepting that prima facie or at face value. And it'll be interesting to see how this case plays out and to continue to compare it, even though there are many and stark differences between the Affluenza case and this case. But it will be interesting to see how this plays out. Or is it going to get the same kind of backlash that the Affluenza case got? And also, will this kid get the same kind of support, right? Will other affluent black kids and families say, you know what, my child experienced the same thing? And I caution against that, because back in the day when I was in school and I was even accused of it, but it didn't bother me. I mean, it didn't have any effect on me at all. This whole talking white thing, right? Does anybody remember that when kids used to be accused, black kids used to be accused of talking white, right? On the one side of that argument and that debate or that discussion, you had black people who would say things. I would hear, so I grew up in Chapel Hill public housing, part of my childhood. And then, just grew up in a working class at sometimes and a poor class, because poverty is cyclical. People know a lot of people are in and out, right? So, so I took more offense to people who not said that black kids were talking or acting white or talking white, but I took more offense, even though I was accused of that plenty of times, of people who would go on with that narrative and say, that that the people who were targeting black kids for talking white or being mean to black kids for talking white were poor black kids because they didn't know how to speak well. That used to get under my skin because I lived in a community that was considered a poor community in Chapel Hill. And y'all know my favorite line from Empire. They say this is a big, rich town. I just come from the poorest parts. That's how I always describe growing up in Chapel Hill. So I was more disturbed and just unnerved by, disturbed by the people who would say, but the kids who are picking on the kids who are speaking proper English are the kids from these poor communities, these poor black kids who are speaking Ebonics. I remember Ebonics was a big thing, right? And I think Ebonics came along way after I had graduated from high school, but I also remember that being a big thing. So the point I'm making here, my girlfriend said I go all over the place, but it's my radio show. It's my radio podcast. Y'all just follow along. Try to hold on and follow along. Because I do have undiagnosed or self-diagnosed ADHD. And I'm glad I heard Judge Mathis say that he has that too. He was never diagnosed as a child, but he swears he has, and I do too. So, yeah, so what was I getting ready to say? I just went off on a thing. But the point is that I think, we need to have some conversations about class and about the assumptions that people make based on a perceived class or even a real class status. I think class and race, there's an intersection of class, race, and gender. But class and race, the way they intersect, gives us insight into some of the things that people experience in life based on their class and their race status intersecting and based on their class, right? So I always tell people one of the most, I think, used politically and manipulated group in America are poor whites. Poor whites, and especially poor whites from rural America. I think they have been exploited. I think they've been used for political interest and gain. And I think they are often also very much invisible to mainstream America. And you remember in the 60s when Robert Kennedy took the trip through West Virginia and through Appalachia and saw poverty and was just appalled and deeply troubled by it. And so that was sort of the beginning and the launching of America's so-called war on poverty. Although I agree with someone I heard say, I can't remember who, it's not a war on poverty, it's a war on the poor that we are seeing. And I agree with that. All right. So some good news. North Carolina, we get it right sometimes, y'all, in our General Assembly. We do. We get it right sometimes. And one of the things that I want to just sort of lift up and applaud the members of the North Carolina General Assembly and our governor for signing back in September, signing into law a bill that I think is long overdue, and that's House Bill 608. And the title of it, and it's now Session Law 2021-143, but it's House Bill 608, and you can find it on ncleg.gov if you ever want to find bills that North Carolina General Assembly passes. Or if you're interested in reading our law, our general statutes, our Constitution, you could also find that on that page. Or seeing who represents you in Raleigh, if you don't know. You can also find that on that page and see what they're doing. You can follow it, see what bills they're passing, what's going on. You can also, guess what? You can view some of the committee meetings, and you can also see the General Assembly in action. I encourage you to do that if you've never seen it. I used to be a lobbyist, and so I was a legislative liaison, then I was a paid lobbyist and so forth. So Had you never seen that done, or advocate? Let me just say that. Let me be clear, because there is a difference. But you do some similar work. But I was educating people on important policies, in hopes that they would, enact legislation to support poor people, people with mental health and substance use conditions, and invest more in our infrastructure, schools and infrastructure in rural areas. Just a whole host of things that I've lobbied for. But if you want to see it in action, go to ncleg.gov and just cruise around that website, and there you will find any and everything you want to know about what's going on in our General Assembly. But I want to talk about, just for a moment, this House Bill 608, or Session Law 2021-143. The title of it is Dignity for Women Who Are Incarcerated. First, though, I want to set it up, the context for it, by having you listen to this this clip from an OBGYN who was trying to help a woman who was incarcerated deliver a child while she was shackled.
Arrived, she was laying on a stretcher. Her clothing had been removed from the waist down. Her ankle was restrained to the stretcher. It was cuffed, linked to the side rail of the stretcher. And I asked the sheriff's deputy to remove the restraint, and she said she just couldn't. She didn't have the authority to do that. And I tried to bargain with her about sort of if for no other reason than the impracticality of having someone's leg restrained when there's an obstetric gynecologic medical need. Our pediatric colleagues came around the corner from their side of the emergency department with the baby, and despite resuscitation had not been able to resuscitate the baby, and gave this patient the really sad news, and went to hand the baby to her. And in that moment, when she reached for the baby, her wrist got yanked back to the side rail of the stretcher that it was chained to. And that was another just truly horrific thing to witness. So I asked the sheriff's deputy at that point to please give me the number of whoever was the next in the chain of command. And that person and I went back and forth, and from there, I think he called the next person, and there were a couple back and forth conversations. And eventually, they sent a second sheriff's deputy to the hospital to be there with the patient, and then agreed to remove the restraint after that. My focus in terms of trying to channel my own grief into something productive has been on the part that happened after she was in my care. And so that's why so there's kind of two parts to the tragicness of her story. One is the loss of her baby and whether or not anything that happened in detention contributed to that. And then the other piece is how the indiscriminate use of restraints added to the horror of it.
All right. So first of all, let me just say, Dr. Carrie Ann Crockett, an OBGYN at Vidant Medical Center in Greenville, you are my new shero. After hearing this and feeling your compassion, your humanity, your love for human life, and your commitment to protect it at all costs and to uphold that Hippocratic oath that all physicians take to first and foremost do no harm, I salute you. You should receive, the Order of the Longleaf Pine or whatever we can give you as the highest honor in our state. It's courageous soldiers like you who are on the front line protecting women, no matter where they are. That keeps me going and optimistic and hopeful that together we can change a lot of things that are happening to women in this country, and in particularly women who are incarcerated. And when we think about a woman who is pregnant, who has to give birth or had to prior to the signing of House Bill 608 by our wonderful governor and members of the General Assembly in North Carolina, who had to give birth to their children in shackles. God bless you all who have worked tirelessly for these women. And there's still a lot of work that we need to do, because we know that many women end up incarcerated because they either have been traumatized repeatedly, they are making hard choices. Many of them are parents who have had to make hard choices about keeping food on the table, roof over their children's head, and may have done things, sold drugs. None of them, by the way, who are in our prisons, and particularly our state prisons, are queen pins. None of them. They probably got caught up with marijuana charges, or because they had an addiction to a controlled substance, and in their active addiction, did some things that to support their habits. So there are a lot of reasons why women end up in prison, and it is not because these are horrible people. And so there's a lot of work we need to do also to create alternatives to women who are in active addiction, who are doing things that are getting them caught up in our criminal injustice system, I will say. And especially women who are pregnant. And so there are many things we can do, create facilities specifically for pregnant women to allow them to deliver their children and stay with their babies, bond with their babies before they're ripped away or taken away from them, in a nurturing environment, something to maintain their sense of human dignity. Because guess what? When you traumatize them in there on the inside, then they come out with compounded trauma, and they end up most likely recidivating, coming back into the prisons because they can't get the trauma that our systems have inflicted upon them on top of the trauma that they brought into the system. So there's a lot of work we need to do. But let me tell you about what House Bill 608 does. In one section of it, it says in this section 148.25.2, limitations on use of restraints, except as otherwise provided in this subsection, the Department of Public Safety and correctional facility employees shall not apply restraints on a pregnant female incarcerated person during the second and third trimester of pregnancy, during labor and delivery, and during the postpartum recovery period. Bravo, North Carolina. The bill goes on. A female incarcerated person who is in the postpartum recovery period may only be restrained if a correctional facility employee makes an individualized determination that that important circumstances exist, which I still, they go on. And there's also a section that says, related to body cavity searches, no correctional facility employee other than a certified healthcare professional shall conduct body cavity searches of a female incarcerated person who is pregnant or in the postpartum recovery period unless the correctional facility employee has probable cause to believe that the female incarcerated is concealing contraband that presents an immediate threat of harm to female incarcerated persons, the fetus, or another person. And it goes on to say that they shall be provided with nutritious food, sufficient food and dietary supplements, and provided access to food at appropriate times of day as ordered by a physician staff member, or a correctional facility nutritionist to meet generally accepted prenatal nutritional guidelines for pregnant female incarcerated persons. In 2021, it took us this long in the history of our country and in the history of in the history of our state, because this is North Carolina law, but there are plenty other states who've passed similar laws. Look how long, for Christ's sake, it has taken us to come up with legislation to say that women basically who are pregnant should be treated with human dignity and respect and should be provided the supports, including nutritious food, so that they can deliver a healthy child. And you know what gets me about this, thank you again, members of North Carolina General Assembly, those of you who sponsored the bill, those of you who signed on and kept pushing for it to come to pass. Thank you all. And thank you, Governor Cooper, for signing it into law without any hesitation. We applaud you and your leadership on that. But you know what gets me is the same people who will argue that women incarcerated, pregnant or not, don't deserve to be treated with human dignity. And if they're pregnant, even in spite of the risk to their unborn children, will be that they don't deserve to be treated with human dignity and respect, that they deserve to be in shackles, are the same people who will be outside protesting against abortions, saying that I'm pro-life. You're pro-life until life is here. And then you can give a damn about the life that's here. That's what gets me. You're pro-life until a child is born. Then you don't want to feed them by allowing families to have adequate access to food, nutrition and WIC and EBT, food stamps, which are EBT cards. You're pro-life until you have to help a mom keep a roof over her head and not be evicted into the streets. You're pro-life until the mom herself, in order to provide good care for her child, she has to, and the father have to be healthy themselves. But God forbid they get sick and they don't have Medicaid coverage and they can't afford the cheapest plan under the ACA. And they are among the almost 1 million people in North Carolina who fall in that Medicaid gap because we have not, in our state, we are among the minority who have not passed Medicaid expansion. So God forbid that the child is born to a mom who's sick, who doesn't have health insurance and needs medical treatment, or who gets sick while she is delivering, right? So the people who are pro-life but anti-Medicaid expansion, I don't understand. Help me to understand that. I encourage somebody to call me next show and tell me, because we're running out of time, but to tell me how that makes sense. What's the justification for that? So in North Carolina, we need to expand Medicaid. Now, quickly. So, y'all know folk are fighting in Washington, D.C. What's new, right? So, caught up in this infighting within the Democratic Party is funding for HBCUs. So remember, everybody was shouting and singing the praises. Hallelujah. Yay. Look at what an HBCU grad brought to the table, or helped bring to the table. And I want to applaud Congresswoman Alma Adams, who had played an instrumental role in this. We were applauding that $45 billion that was going to be allocated to HBCUs. Guess what that is possibly down to now? From $45 billion in Biden's spending plan, due to negotiations and infighting within the Democratic Party. Within the Democratic Party in D.C. It's down to $2 billion. So from 45 to $2 billion. Y'all, there's a lot going on, but I thank y'all for staying with me tonight. We can go on and on. This has been another segment of Meaningful Conversations with Dr. L, and I'm so glad that you all joined me tonight. Take care of each other. Get vaccinated if you have not, and wear your mask, please. Peace and blessings.